morning, boys and girls. We're going traveling today. Winnie has her little bag here. It's all packed. You can see it's full of all her little things. And over here, she has her little passport. She's ready to go traveling. Winnie, where are you going today?
I think I'm going to go to Budapest.
Oh, Winnie, you're going to go to Budapest. You'll have a wonderful trip. Well, Winnie, have a great time. Be sure to send us mail and let us know how you're doing. A little email now and again would be very nice.
And enjoy the goulash.
Enjoy the goulash. Off you go. Have a great trip, Winnie. Hello, Mr. Gerstle. How are you?
Fine, Miss Manners. It is wonderful as always to see you. And today is very interesting that we're going traveling, all of us, because there are different manners and different habits in different countries. And it's very important to know that what might be acceptable in our country may not be acceptable, maybe an insult in another country.
So you need to read up, you need to educate yourself before you go traveling, because you want to make a good impression and obviously not leave a bad impression.
You don't want to be the ugly American.
You don't want to be the ugly American. Absolutely.
Right.
Interesting.
I was thinking, for example, the most obvious thing to me is in the United States, we eat very politely, very quietly. We leave neatly. We leave everything, no mess anywhere.
Do you slurp your food?
Oh, no, you wouldn't dream of doing that.
Do you eat with your mouth full?
No, and no. But in Japan and China, Vietnam, Laos, the Far East, it is good manners to slurp, to mess up, to belch, to make a noise, to...
You really get into the meal. You really love the meal. You eat with gusto.
Who's that?
Now that's so interesting. But in the Middle East, another thing, you never ever, talking about food, you never ever eat with your left hand, because your left hand is considered unclean. You only eat with your right hand, and that is really important to remember. You never ever touch food with your left hand.
Speaking of touching, I've also understand that in the Middle East, touching between men and women is not an acceptable
Not
thing.
in public, absolutely. Women are very modest. They dress modestly. Their shoulders are covered. Their dresses are long. They act in a modest way. So all of the other things, hugging and kissing in there, that's all done in private.
I see.
It's very, on the outside, it's very, very modest. And another thing that is considered so disrespectful in the Middle East is to show somebody the sole of your foot. The sole of your foot is considered dirty, and it's an absolute insult to show the sole of your foot to somebody.
I do know this, though, that when you visit the home of someone in the Middle East, you always bring a small gift. Flowers, candy, something small but meaningful. And when you are seated by your host or hostess, you sit where you're put. Even if you don't like the person with whom you're seated, make the best of it.
Or if you want to sit next to somebody to have a particular conversation with them, no, you cannot ask to be moved. Once you're seated, your spot at the table, that's the spot that you take.
Moving farther south, say to Kenya and everything, I understand that you actually spit on people.
Now, in this country and in the West, spitting is disgusting. We never ever do. You would never walk in the street and spit. You would never spit anywhere, especially near somebody. But in Kenya, when a girl is getting married, a father will actually spit near the bride, and it's a form of good luck. When a baby is born, the tribe spits not necessarily on the child, but right around the child, and that is considered a form of good luck. They're wishing the child a wonderful, successful, prosperous life.
I've heard they do that in Greece as well at weddings.
Absolutely they do. It's just so interesting. What is accepted in one part of the world is not accepted in another part of the world. But if you want to be a somebody who really travels well and wants to be accepted in other countries, you want to know about the customs and the mores of those countries.
True. For example, in the United States, we tend to be very courteous, very polite, not huggy, touchy, feely, kissy, but in Latin America, I understand it's a very warm relationship.
They right in your face.
Yes, they get close and everything, but while they are right in your face, the subordinate will not look the superior in the eye.
It's like a child will never look the teacher in the eye, or a child will never look an elder in the eye. That is very disrespectful. So they always look downward, but they're actually being respectful. Over here, we'd say, look at the person, look them in the eye. We teach our children to do that. But in those countries, they don't. So we just need to know the difference. We just need to know.
Do you know that in parts of Argentina, Bolivia, Peru, and Chile, there is a habit concerning dropping water on the ground?
I know.
The Pachamama.
I love that. I think that is so nice. It's sort of respecting the earth.
Yes.
I love that. I think that's wonderful.
And another thing, I'm thinking that in the United States, you wouldn't dream of going to a restaurant and not leaving a tip at the end of your meal. But in Japan, in China, no. That's an insult.
Absolutely, absolutely. So you always, when you go into a Japanese home, you always remove your shoes. It's the same as in many parts of the world you do that. Shoes are considered unclean, and you don't want to bring that into the house. So and in Japan, you would never pour your own drink. You always wait for somebody else. So if you're having a drink, and adults are drinking sake, they wait for the other person to pour them their drink. You never pour your own drink.
You know they do that in Egypt as well?
I know.
And another thing though, in Egypt and in Portugal, you will never find a salt shaker on the table.
No.
And if you ask for a salt shaker or something to spice, be prepared to get some
because that means that the cook hasn't prepared the food well. So that's
right.
An insult to the cook. So you'll never find a salt shaker. I know. And in China, do you know that it's okay to take a nap on the side of the road?
Oh, good.
Yes, you can just lie down and take a nap. That's very, very common and very, very acceptable. But in those countries, you never point your finger. If you want to show where something is, you use your whole hand to point. You never point with your finger. The finger is considered disrespectful.
In the meantime, look, Winnie's starting to bark and carry on. She must be getting ready for her trip. Don't worry, Winnie. Don't have to bark. We will make sure you get on the Malev plane to Budapest in plenty of time. So relax while we're talking some more manners.
That's right. And you know that if you give a gift to somebody in China, expect it to be rejected at least 3 times before they will accept the gift, because that is their way of saying, you don't have to pay me.
You know, in Afghanistan, if bread falls on the ground by accident...
I love that tradition. They pick up the bread and they kiss it.
That's right.
Isn't that nice? It's just, I think that's so respectful. I think that's such a lovely tradition.
And you know what? Wherever you go in the world, you will find different habits, different customs, different mores. And you know, just as you would be expected to be a fine guest in somebody's home, think as well. You want to be a good guest. You want to carry a good impression of America when you go traveling. And so the old saying, when in Rome, do as the Romans do, is very, very true when you go traveling.
Absolutely.
Study the habits, learn the customs, and be a fine guest so that you will be the beautiful American, leaving a wonderful impression of our country.
I love it.
Now, there she goes again. You know what? I'm going to go to the airport.
Just
I'll
take her.
Right.
So that she's early. She's upset. She really wants to be sure that she gets there. She's very excited. She's studied all about the different ways people behave in different countries. And you know what? One thing you might tell her, is that when she goes to China and she's eating her rice out of a bowl, never have her leave the chopsticks standing upright. So would you please tell her when she
Winnie,
goes?
all right. I'm on my way, Miss Manners. Thank you again, as always.
Thank you so much.
Very, very valuable. And boys and girls, you may want to study some habits on your own to find out where you're going, what they do.
Very nice. Thank you for visiting us. And boys and girls, as usual, it's been such a pleasure speaking with you. I love getting together with you this way. I'd much rather get together with you in person, but until we can do that, I'm sending you love and lots of hugs and saying bye-bye for now. Stay well.